الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you for the introduction, Haj Hassan. The topic of beauty being the splendor of truth or the true, and that saying being something which is attributed to Plato. I'm sure most of you have heard of Plato. He was a philosopher in the ancient Greek world, and he differed from the other philosophers in his understanding of reality. Now, some of these thoughts that Plato had overlap with the theories which the Islamic philosophers have come up with. Now, when we talk about Islamic philosophy, do we really refer to a science that is separate from the Quran and the Hadith? Is that why Islamic philosophy developed? Was there something that was missing in the Quran and missing in the Hadith that had to be filled with the gap of philosophy? Or is there a different reason why Islamic philosophy had developed? Because at the end of the day, Islam is a religion. And a religion is supposed to be something that provides human beings with a complete understanding of the world, a worldview, as was discussed in the previous session by Shaykh Ahmed. So why do sciences such as philosophy develop in these religions? The answer to that, or the answer that is provided by these thinkers and philosophers, is that philosophy is the unfolding of the Islamic teachings. It's one way to understand the reality behind the revelation. Now, the job of the prophet or the role of the prophet isn't to philosophize. A prophet is sent by God not to come and give us a theory of philosophy and teach us how to think. The role of a prophet is to guide people. His job is to move the hearts of the people. A philosopher just wants to philosophize. They want to make sense of things. They ask questions and they want to figure out what's going on in existence. And that's their objective. The prophet, on the other hand, wants to guide people. He wants to purify their hearts. He wants to move them. He wants to create change in the hearts of individuals. And the Quran is very clear about that. It says that this message is a message of guidance. Kitab Huda wa Kitab Rahmah. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only wants us to be guided. Plato has a different objective. But what philosophers do is they are able to look at this religion and they're able to pose questions to dig out the secrets that are hidden within this religion or this tradition. That's what it's for. So when it comes to the idea of beauty that Plato talks about, we come to ask ourselves, why is beauty so important? And what does it mean when Plato says that beauty is the splendor of the truth? Now, if I'm a postmodernist, you can obviously already guess that any answer that anyone comes up with would be correct. And I don't think Plato himself knew what he meant by that. It just came out. And we can sit here analyzing. Everybody would give their perspective. Maybe he was talking about a tree that he was admiring. Maybe he was admiring the cosmos. He was looking at the skies and he saw the order and he thought that this beauty is the splendor of the true, and the true might be God. It might be his own spiritual attraction to spirituality. It might be anything. We can sit here analyzing what he meant by that. But if we go to Plato himself, we can see that Plato believed in an objective truth. He wasn't a relativist, as postmodernists are. And the reason why it's important to distinguish between whether a person was as an absolutist or a relativist is because it helps us understand the meaning behind the words that he said and build conclusions on that. We have to first try to reach the understanding of what that author is intending, that meaning that the author is intending when they speak. When it comes to the Islamic view of the world, we also, as Muslims and the Islamic tradition, believes in an objective truth. And this is very important when it comes to topics such as art, language, sciences, and other fields that the human beings have developed over time. If you believe in the objectivity of reality, then you're able to found theories based on that objective truth. When it comes to beauty, we ask ourselves whether Islam has an objective meaning for beauty. Why is beauty important in Islam? And is it even important in Islam? Because we said that Plato is the one who came up with this sentence. Does Islam say something about this? And if it does say something about it, what does it refer to? If we look at the Arabic language, we can see that beauty is sometimes described using the word jamil, right? Sometimes it's described using the word hasanun. And there's different ways of expressing what beauty is in the Arabic language. But if we look at the usage of the Quran, we see that the Quran specifically chooses on many occasions to use the word hasan. أعمال حسنة ليجزيهم أحسن ما كانوا يعملون. And if we look at the word hasan, we can see that it doesn't only mean beautiful. It also means good. There's two meanings in this word, which drives us to think, or makes us conclude at least on one level, that beauty and goodness go hand in hand together. If something is good, then it must be beautiful. And if something is beautiful, then it must be good. And if we delve further into this, we can make another conclusion as well. That goodness is the interior and beauty is the exterior. So now we've divided it even further. We said there's an interior, which is goodness, and if goodness is to be exteriorized, to be reflected on the outside, it comes out as beauty. And this leads us to another area in the Islamic philosophy, and that is to understand that the world is both interior and exterior. You see, because of believing in an objective truth, we're able to make this claim. If we were subjective, then this claim would be invalid. It would be just a matter of perception. But there's an interior and there's an exterior. Islamic philosophers or Muslim philosophers believe that humans and creatures exist on multiple levels at one time. We have the physical level, which is the lowest level of existence. This is what we see with our senses. And then we have corresponding levels with this physical level, multiple layers of existence that exist at one time. I exist as a physical being. This is my body. I see my eyes. I have my ears. This is the physical world that I can touch. There's solid, gas, air. And above that are realms that begin to become less and less physical. So this body that I have here corresponds with another existence, a reality that corresponds with my body in a different realm. I'll give you an example. When it comes to angels, how do angels know what we're doing? Islam tells us that angels record our actions, right? We have an angel that knows the good things that we do, and an angel that knows the bad things that we do, right? Do angels see our physical body? Are they physical beings? Do we see them? We can't see them. Now, if we can't see them, that could either mean that there's a limitation in our own eyes and we can't catch certain wavelengths. That could be one possibility. Another possibility, which should have been first, that angels don't exist. That's the first option. Second option is that we're not able to see them. They are forms of, physical being that our eyes cannot catch. Just like there are certain sound waves that we can't hear, there are certain images or rays of light that we cannot see. Our eyes are just unable to detect them. That's another option. A third option is that these angels could be non-physical. If we say that it's the third one, that they're non-physical, then how are they able to know what we're doing? It's a valid question. How can they understand when I'm walking, when I'm speaking? They can't hear, they don't have ears, they don't have eyes, they can't see light, they can't see things. So how do they understand what we're doing then? So Muslim philosophers tried to resolve this issue by saying that the angels exist in a realm that's above the physical world. And because we have different levels of existence at once, they're able to see our existence in that other realm that they exist in. I know this is a bit complex, but I'm trying to simplify it as much as I can. This is a conference, and we're trying to introduce certain ideas and concepts. If you are very confused, just imagine I didn't say anything. You didn't attend here. You're just imagining. You woke up from a sleep, and just continue your life like it was before. No angels, different realms, multiple universes now. And you're like, it's all right. And I'm not sure, do we have therapists here in case somebody needs therapy after this? No? Maybe next year they would provide the service. So living as human beings on a physical level, having a metaphysical reality as well. Now, of course, that's divided into different realms as well. They believe they exist simultaneously at one time. So if I say a lie, when I say a lie, my soul changes, it transforms to a certain shape or a certain color or a certain form. Every action has a certain form that reflects on the soul. This is what they call in Islamic theology or philosophy the embodiment of actions. That your actions gain a certain body or shape or form. So if I lie, or let's say I backbite, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes backbiting in the Quran as what? Eating fire, right? يَأْكُلُونَ فِي بُطُونِهِمْ نَارًا. Right? That's the verse. So, that's what? Oh, thank you very much. I thought it was as well when I read about it. So Allah kind of gives us hints that if you backbite, it's as if you're eating fire in your stomach, physically. He describes it like that. If we lie, it takes a certain form. If we backbite, it does. If we do good, because when you make an action, when you do something, there's a certain energy, somebody called it the other day, or a certain feeling that you develop, an emotion. When you're speaking the truth, you're speaking the truth because you feel it. There's an emotion that you feel. And when you're lying, you know that you're lying. Even though you might be a very good liar, but still deep down inside, that act of lying creates a certain type of feeling or emotion in the person. And this is what Muslim philosophers or mystics believe as the transformation of the soul when you commit a certain act. So if I listen to a backbite, I listen to a lie, or I say a lie myself, my soul will transform to a certain image, to a certain form. Now there's a whole science dedicated to discovering the different types of forms which represent the actions that we do. Sometimes I could take a form of a dog, an animal, right? A dog represents a certain emotion, a certain manifestation, perhaps anger, let's say. If someone has an anger problem, a dog might represent that. Lying or backbiting might be represented by a scorpion, for example. So it's the whole theory that believes that everything in existence is a manifestation of a certain quality. And the quality that is more prevalent in that thing comes out in the physical world. Okay, let's go back a little bit. I lie, my soul takes a certain form. The angel sees that form because the angels live in the world of forms and spirits. They don't live in the physical world. So they don't hear my lie. They don't hear me saying a lie. But when I do lie, my soul, that emotion, that energy, that feeling, that form that is created by lying, the angels are able to detect that. And that's how they know that so-and-so lied. When I pay charity, there's a certain form that this charity takes as well, so they know that I perform charity. When I pray, Muslim mystics believe that even salat that you pray has a metaphysical form, so that when you perform it, it creates that image in the other realm. That other realm has this image of salat, that form of salat that differs from your physical one, and the angels are able to see it, and they know that you perform salat. All right, why am I saying all this stuff? It's not just to confuse you or to give you a hard time over here, but I'm trying to indeed introduce this concept of beauty. Why is beauty important? When we look at beauty, now that we understand that there are different levels of reality and existence, we look at the concept of beauty. Where do we understand beauty lies? Is it in the physical world? In the metaphysical world? What does beauty mean? What is beautiful? The thinkers who talk about this, they say that what beauty is the exteriorization of those forms or archetypes of the divine. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists in that perfection, in His essence, and God manifests, right? He manifests on different levels of reality. These manifestations that happen in the spiritual world, that correspond with the physical world, what we try to do is try to see the reflection of those spiritual realities in this physical world over here. And this is what, in summary, beauty is to see from the form that spiritual archetype or reality that it represents. This is how Muslim thinkers understand beauty. Allah's unfolding into this world. Allah's creation onto this world. How do we go from the outside back to the inside? So Muslim artists or religious artists in general, when they paint a picture, when they create or design an object, their objective is always to return this object to its source, to have this remind us of our source, of our beauty. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has an attribute of mercy, then that would be incorporated in the artwork that I have. Because the objective is to return to that root, to return to that source, which is the ultimate source of beauty and goodness. And this is where Islamic art or religious art would differ from arts of other civilizations. We believe that everything has to go back to that objective truth. And when the Prophet came, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the mystics believe that, or the Muslim scholars, mystics, they believe that the Prophet did not come to teach or to tell people to worship Allah. People are already worshiping. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran clearly says that everything in existence performs tasbih of Allah, right? In our own nature, the mere fact that we exist is a form of worship, just by existing. Because worship is acknowledging and admitting the existence of our source, right? That's what worship is. Now, worship happens on different levels. Sometimes it happens on a mental level. I admit mentally that there is a God. Sometimes it happens on an existential level. This one I don't have to think about. The mere fact that I exist is a form of worship to Allah. Now, what did Islam come to do? If everybody's worshiping Allah existentially, why did the Prophet come with the religion then? Well, the Quran is clear. The Prophet came to direct the people to the correct form of worship by removing the symbols and the intermediaries that block the person from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if I am able to worship Allah directly, being the ultimate source, is that better? Or is it better to worship a symbol that I've created that represents Allah? Pure worship is better, right? Now, that doesn't mean that symbols are wrong. This is where the certain Muslim sects make a mistake. They think that if there's a symbol, an intermediary, then we're replacing Allah with that. And that's not true. Symbols are necessary. Intermediaries are necessary. Salat is a symbol. Salat is an intermediary. Language is a form of expression, right? It's a symbol. If I say, Ya Allah, am I performing shirk? Am I being a polytheist? Because I used a word to describe Allah? I'm not a polytheist, no. Polytheism happens when I begin to direct myself to the symbol and forget the meaning behind the symbol. This is where the mistake happens. So people, when they created idols, and the Prophet came and said, why are you worshiping these idols? They said, we're worshiping them to get us closer to Allah. Right? This was the response of these people. The problem is, that's not true. That wasn't true. The people forgot Allah and they began attributing everything to the idol itself. The idol is what brings the rain. The idol is what creates the people. It brings goodness. It brings badness. It brings sustenance into my life. They created an intermediary, and over time, they started worshiping the object and the idol, and they forgot the source and the root of the idol. So the Prophet came to destroy the outer idols and the inner idols. As the hadith states, that the biggest idol that we have is our nafs, that we have to break. It stands between us and the realization of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So going back to this, beauty is creating an expression that represents the divine. That's what beauty is. And expressions happen on many different levels. Sometimes we have the expression of language, of speech, right? When we speak, we're expressing our thoughts, our ideas. We're expressing notions that we have, feelings that we have. We speak it out. This is one form of expression. I could tell you that this is a beautiful day. I used words, right? There's a word. There's a meaning behind the word that I'm trying to put into your mind. So it's a form of expression. Another form of expression is through drawing and painting, right? That same notion, that same idea of a beautiful day, instead of using words to describe it, I can paint it on a canvas. I can paint what I think a beautiful day is, and you look at it, and you see, wow, it's a beautiful day that he drew, right? Now, words function differently than paintings do. In words, there's a very big limitation. I only have sound to use. So I'm very limited. I can say a word, beautiful, and I can say the word day, right? Now, I'm relying on your ability to understand what those mean. When I say beautiful, you know this notion of beautiful, right? You know that meaning. So you kind of get what I'm saying. When I say day, you know day means Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or the day that we're in. It's not night. You know all this stuff, right? But I'm not giving you much information. I'm just saying beautiful and day, and the rest of the work is up to you to do. If I draw a painting, I'm able to give you more data. I can show you some colors. I can show you what I mean by beautiful might be the view that the sky is blue. It's not very cloudy. There's a garden of flowers. Perhaps there's birds also in the sky. The sun is shining. And maybe there's a little bit of water or a lakeside over there, right? I can express more things through the image, through the picture. So that's a different level of expression. So we have the expression of the tongue, We have the expression of art. We have the expression of the mind sometimes through writing. That's another form of expression, right? I can write a very simple sentence that doesn't sound eloquent at all. And I can also write a very eloquent sentence, right? If you read a storybook or a poem, you can tell the difference between a very well-written poem or a very well-written story and a poorly written one, right? So just the fact that I can write doesn't make something beautiful. There's a beautiful way of writing, and there's a non-beautiful way of writing as well. Now, Islam emphasizes that everything that the Muslim does has to reflect this divine beauty. Everything, in all levels and forms of expression. If it's language, a Muslim has to be someone who's very eloquent, someone who uses beautiful words when they speak, someone who is able to express their ideas with clarity, something that I'm failing probably to do right now, but I'm trying my best. To express with clarity, to make people understand. The words of the mu'min should be able to penetrate the hearts of other people. Goodness has to be the overwhelming quality of that speech of a believer. In other ways, a Muslim has to have beautiful thoughts. That's another level of existence. How do I have beautiful thoughts? Do I think about rabbits jumping and running all day? That might be a very cute thought, but it doesn't represent a high and noble quality that I attach myself with, right? To think of beautiful thoughts is to think of perfection, to perfect attributes of God. To be generous, to have generosity, to have love, to have compassion, to have empathy, to imitate those divine qualities. So on the level of thought, I must also have beautiful thoughts. I must prevent ugly thoughts from taking over my mind and taking over the way I think. And this is reflected in the characters of people. People who are very negative in their thoughts, people who limit the scope of their thinking to only physical things, you find their life is shallow in a way, right? They're unable to express beautiful ideas. It kind of, when you sit down with them and you speak for an hour, you feel exhausted after that. Nothing really deep about what they can provide to you. And this reflects the shallowness and the poverty of their own soul. If you look at modern language, if you open up a newspaper nowadays or an article, or you go on Facebook and you look at people's comments, you realize that language has been affected as well. Everybody is using very simple language. There's one adjective nowadays, right? Maybe a few more. You know, a few years ago, I think it was awesome. Everything was awesome. Like awesome, this is an awesome car. This is an awesome chair. It's an awesome day. It's an awesome friend. Everything's awesome. So awesome is the only way we can describe this thing, right? We don't have the depth to realize what beauty this one has that differs from the other things that I'm trying to describe. The beauty of the car that I have, for example, or what I'm trying to describe, might be related to the ability of that car to drive fast, for example. But I call it awesome. I don't use the proper word for it. And when I'm describing how my friend is awesome, is because they're very kind and I'm able to have fun when I go out with them. Now, when I say my friend is awesome and the car is awesome, I'm unable to understand the difference between the awesomeness just by saying the word awesome, right? But there are words that express those feelings specifically. We don't use them anymore. And this tells us that the time that we're living in, because of the poverty of the soul, we've lost the ability to express emotions and feelings in a deep way. We have a very shallow outlook. Again, a product of postmodernism as well. And modernism, it removes the ability to detect real in-depth feelings and ideas because you don't believe in the existence of anything beyond what you're thinking in your mind. But if you believe that there is nobility, there are high divine qualities in existence, then when you look at them and you think about them, you try to describe those things. And that's where the depth comes from. When I create a work of art, I'm trying to bring those things into the physical world because I want to create a symbol that takes me back to that. If you have somebody who is very dear to you, you put their picture in the house, right? If you go to a place that you think is beautiful, you go hiking on some sort of mountain, you like to put that picture where you went in your living room, right? Or in your bedroom. Why? Why do we put pictures of things? Why do we like to, if you're a teenager, you probably put, someone who belongs to your favorite basketball team maybe, or your, idol. I don't know. I'll talk on the guy's side. Yeah, that's what I know. But you put an image of something you like, right? I'm just saying for the sake of Iman that it's a basketball player, So you put that in there. Why do you put pictures in your bedroom or in your living room? Why do we do that? Why do we put the name of Allah if you're a good believer or a bad one who wants other people to think they're good? Why do we do that? Why do we put objects in our house? It's a reminder, right? Yes, it reminds us of a higher form of divinity or nobility that we aspire to go back to. That's if it's Allah's name. If it's the picture of somewhere that I hiked, a mountain, a valley that I went to that's very beautiful, I put it to remind me of that, right? I want it to evoke those feelings of when I was there enjoying that thing. So a Muslim artisan, someone who creates artworks, uses this form of expression to create things that remind us of that spiritual origin that we had. And the spiritual origin is expressed in the Quran and the Ahadith. It teaches us what those realms of spirituality are, that pure realms of Tawheed, the qualities and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We create forms and images to bring us back to that origin. And this is where Islamic art should differ from modern or postmodern art. We have an objective. We always want to return to the origin. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. This is to be reflected in the artwork of the Muslims, in the tables that we create, in the design, the architecture of the house that we have. It should always transcend our human limitations. Postmodern art or modern art represents the reflection of what's inside the human being. It revolves around my personality, my thoughts, my perceptions. I feel this way, therefore I want my room to be a reflection of myself. A Muslim is taught to be elevated beyond himself or herself. If you're always limited to yourself, you can never go beyond yourself. If you're always thinking me, then that's your size. You never transcend yourself. You never go beyond it. You never elevate. You never grow beyond who you are. Islam tries to elevate us to go beyond ourselves, to move from our ego into the divine. And in that we experience perfection outside of our own limitations. Now, it doesn't mean that we cease to be human beings, but we have to experience the divine from the human aspect. This is what elevates us. This is what brings us up. This is what makes us have a healthy family, a healthy nation, is to be able to imitate these divine qualities in our speech, in our art, in the creation of objects, in our inventions. And this is why, if you look at the history of the Muslim civilization when they developed, as opposed to the European civilization, when you had the Renaissance or the Enlightenment, what was the main idea that was proposed at that time? It was the separation between church and state, right? This is what the Renaissance was about primarily, is to remove science. Science becomes the leading factor that drives society. Yes, that's leading religion. We can name it that way, yes. It does replace the divine religion, revelation basically. So science becomes the thing that people follow. They reject revelation. In the Islamic world, the development of science didn't happen that way. Now, of course, when we're taught history, we're taught the history of Europe mainly, right? Nobody teaches us the history in the Islamic world. But when science developed in the Islamic world, who were the scientists? Who were the physicians? Who were the ones who were astronomers? Who created inventions? They were performing surgeries on people. They were curing people. They were creating medicine. They had telescopes that they were making. They had ships that they were constructing. Theologians, philosophers, they were scholars. The physicians or the physicists and the doctors, they were also trained in classic Islamic theology or philosophy or law. They were also scholars. So in the development of the Muslim civilization, science was never separated. Religion was never something that hindered people from developing scientifically. But the type of inventions that happen in the Muslim world are very different than what we see in the modern world that we live in right now. When a Muslim wanted to invent something, they invented it with a purpose to serve humanity, to perfect them, to move them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to help them with having a healthy life, to create convenience for their life. Look at the Islamic architecture. In Iran, I went to the house of Mullah Sadra, one of our greatest philosophers in the Shia world. Now, only a section of that house you're able to visit. The other section, someone lives in it. I don't know, maybe the son of Mullah Sadra sold it to somebody and they inherited it. But yeah, there's a family in there. And this was like, Mullah Sadra a few hundred years ago. But alhamdulillah, we have, a little section we can visit. And next to it, well, in the house, when you go, there was a big open area. It was not a garden, but there was a small room to the right side that you go in. It's a small area that you can enter. It's as big as one person. So if you do sujood, that's kind of how big it is. So it's there for prayers. And behind you is this very big open hall, right? If you stand there, the way it was designed, if you speak, the whole hall can hear you. So let's say it's as big as this, and it might even be bigger than here. And that room is in the corner over there. If you say Bismillah, everyone hears you. No microphone, nothing. It was designed that way. They were able to create a form where the sound waves are able to go around. So when they invented something, they thought about how the call to prayer or the Quran can be heard by other people. This is what was in their mind. If they created a home, they had to symbolize those higher truths. They create a garden to represent the garden of paradise, a river to represent the rivers that flow in paradise, right? Always reminding you of these higher realities and truths so that you can assimilate them. This is the objective, to live in that and always have that remembrance, that dhikrullah, to remember Allah and everything that's around you. So the Muslim world took a very different direction when it came to science and when it came to religion. It was never separated. The separation between science and religion is a European phenomenon. And unfortunately, this is what we think is the prevalent truth and how humanity developed. It's not. It developed like that in this one area in the world. In the other areas, it didn't have that problem. So this is also something to keep in mind. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.